Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into one of the most ambitious economic projects on the planet, the African Continental Free Trade Area. We're talking about a plan to create a single, unified market across the entire African continent. It's a huge deal.
And let's just start with the number, because it really shows you the sheer scale of this idea. $3.4 trillion. That's the combined GDP of the continent, which is on its way to becoming the world's largest free trade zone, at least by the number of countries involved.
But this whole thing isn't just about the money. Not at all. It's really the modern economic version of a dream that's been around for decades. This idea of a unified, self-reliant Africa, all rooted in the philosophy of Pan-Africanism.
And believe me, this has been a long time coming. The seed of the idea was planted way back in 1980. Then you had key treaties and agreements building on it, leading up to that historic signing in 2018, and then, finally, the official launch of trading just a couple of years ago.
So, how do you take a dream that big and actually make it real? You have to prove it can work. You have to start somewhere with that very first shipment, the first transaction, the first real-world test.
Okay, so let's get into this. It's called the Guided Trade Initiative, or GTI. The best way to think about it is like a real-world laboratory. It's a pilot program where a handful of countries just started making actual trades to stress test the entire system. The customs paperwork, the legal stuff, the logistics, to find all the problems and work out the kinks before going big.
And the early results from this laboratory? Honestly, they're really promising. By the middle of 2025, countries like Kenya and Rwanda were already seeing some serious growth in trade with brand new partners across the continent, shipping everything from car batteries to processed coffee. Now, here's where the narrative really starts to change. You have a Kenyan company shipping car batteries to Ghana. This one shipment completely shatters that old myth that trade within Africa is just about raw materials. Thanks to the AfCFTA, they got to bypass a massive 35% import tax. It was proof that African-made industrial goods can absolutely compete right here on the continent.
And this is a fantastic example of how the AfCFTA is sparking innovation. So you've got this small women-led coffee company in Rwanda, and they want to sell their coffee in Ghana. Normally, the shipping costs for a small business would just be a total deal breaker. So what do? They came up with this consolidated cargo strategy, pooling their products with other small businesses into a single container. That one simple idea made it affordable and opened up a huge new market for them.
Okay, but these early wins are only part of the story. I mean, as inspiring as these examples are, the journey to a fully connected market is, well, it's far from smooth. In fact, it's hitting some really serious roadblocks. Which, brings up a really important question. If the pilot program is working and we're seeing these amazing success stories, why hasn't trade just exploded across the entire continent? What's holding back the floodgates?
And the answer, as one ambassador who was right in the middle of this puts it, is in the turbulence you find in the gap between the law on paper and the reality on the ground. It's the difference between what's written in an agreement and what actually happens when a truck pulls up to a border crossing.
So let's break down those roadblocks. Experts tend to put them into three big buckets. First, you have the physical barriers. Literally, not enough good roads, railways, and ports. Second, the bureaucratic hurdles. Tons of conflicting rules, customs delays, and countries using their own unique standards to block goods. And third, you've got political obstacles. Nations trying to protect their own industries or being afraid to lose the money they make from customs fees.
That first challenge, the physical one, is just immense. The African Development Bank estimates there's an infrastructure funding gap of $130 billion. And that's not a one-time cost. That's every single year. That's the cash needed to build the roads and ports and power grids to actually connect this so-called single market.
And here's what that infrastructure gap means in the real world. It creates something people are calling a logistics tax. So even if the official tariff is zero, all the hidden costs of just moving stuff around, bad roads, extra fuel costs, unofficial roadblocks, can add a staggering 40 to 75% to the final price of a product. It just makes it totally uncompetitive.
All right, so you've got the problems with moving physical stuff. But beyond that, a whole new, incredibly complex challenge is popping up, and it's all happening in the digital world. The rules for data, for digital services, and for AI are becoming a central battleground.
And at the very heart of this is a massive conflict. On one side, you have the AfCFTA's new digital trade protocol. It's pushing for wide-open, unrestricted data flows, a model that, let's be honest, really benefits the big global tech giants.
But on the other side, you have the African Union's own policy, which is all about data sovereignty, trying to protect African data and interests. These two ideas are pulling in completely opposite directions.
And get this, the negotiations for this digital protocol happened entirely in secret. But leaked drafts show some clauses that are, well, pretty alarming. They could stop countries from charging taxes on digital products. They could force nations to let their citizens' data be shipped out of the continent. And this is a huge one. They could ban governments from demanding to see the source code of AI systems, which would make it incredibly difficult for Africa to regulate its own digital future.
So, with all of these challenges, physical, bureaucratic, and now digital, what's the path forward? How can the continent maybe recalibrate its route a little bit to actually reach the AfCFTA's full potential?
Well, right now is actually a critical moment. In 2024, the agreement turned 5 years old, which means it's now legally eligible for review and for amendments. This gives leaders this crucial built-in opportunity to stop, look at what's working and what's not, and make some really important adjustments.
And experts are already coming forward with clear, actionable ideas. They're focused not just on the trade rules themselves, but on building up the real-world capacity to trade. That means things like, yes, accelerating infrastructure, finally harmonizing all those different rules at the border, helping countries build up their ability to make finished goods, and making sure that the 1.3 billion people in this market actually see the benefits.
So in the end, the success of this monumental project really hinges on one big question. Can its member countries finally close that massive gap between their incredible, inspiring vision and the complex, messy reality on the ground? The answer is going to determine whether the AfCFTA becomes the engine of a true African economic renaissance or just a beautiful dream that gets stuck in traffic.